male and female students. Head of Presidential Council directs government to resume work from Aden. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shazab Abdelbay. Britain prepares to release a report on Iranian interference and Houthi violations before the United Nations soon, while Yemeni officials warn that the humanitarian situation in Ma'rib is heading towards a catastrophe due to economic situation. This report has more details.
A British official has announced that his country is about to submit a report on Iranian interference and Houthi violations to the United Nations soon, as a Yemeni official warned of the deterioration of the humanitarian situation and fears that it was heading towards a catastrophe in Ma'rib Governorate, which is home to more than 62% of the displaced fleeing the control of the Houthis. During his meeting with the British delegation, Dr. Abdurrabbu Muftah, the representative of Ma'rib Governorate, reviewed what he described as a significant decline in humanitarian interventions by UN and international organizations in the governorate, in addition to the economic war waged by the terrorist Houthi militia against the Yemeni people. Muftah gave a presentation to a delegation from the British Foreign Ministry, who were visiting Ma'rib for the first time since the start of the conflict. He warned of a slide towards a humanitarian catastrophe and famine in the governorate. The Undersecretary of Ma'rib also discussed with the British delegation the political and security situation in the governorate, the central role of the governorate in making peace and its vision for the future. Muftah called for a strong and firm British and international role towards the crimes and violations of the Houthi terrorist militia, forcing it to comply with the requirements of peace and stop its crimes and ongoing military actions, despite the declaration of the armistice to stop the war and the international community's real pressure on it. Yemen's humanitarian catastrophe remains one of the world's most severe. More than half of the population is considered highly food insecure, and humanitarian access is severely limited. Many IDPs continue to face recurrent displacement, often as a result of a combination of violence and natural catastrophes.
Local sources in Abyan reported that 3 members of Al-Qaeda organization had been killed. It stated that 3 members of the organization were killed when they tried to attack a military site east of Mudaya district. A source said the forces fought violent confrontations against elements affiliated with Al-Qaeda. A leader in the ranks of the Houthi militia and 2 others were killed and 4th was injured in clashes with the government forces in Ma'rib. The sources pointed out that the confrontations took place with the support of the government forces' drones. Houthi militia turned a government school in the north of Hodeidah into a training camp for new workers. Educational sources said that the leader of the Director of Education to inform the parents of the students who had failed in the government schools in the district to transfer their children to Bin Nu'man school for the purpose of holding a training course for them. Houthis' unfair policies towards Yemeni women led to Dr. Samia Al-Aghbari to criticize gender separation. This report has more details.
The Houthis' discriminating policies towards Yemeni women is reflected. The Houthis fired Dr. Samia Al-Aghbari, head of the journalism department at the university's Mass Communication College, when she criticized the decision to separate the sexes, and Assam Organization for Rights and Liberties has condemned that. Late this month, the Houthis implemented new regulations at the college, mandating that male and female students report on Saturdays, Sundays and Mondays respectively. Since then, Yemeni opposition parties have accused the Houthis of trying to drive women out of the workforce and out of school. Dr. Al-Aghbari, who referred to her termination as job rotation, reiterated her criticism of the restriction and pleaded with Yemenis who agreed with her views to challenge the law and stand up for women who had been denied important posts at Yemeni colleges. She mentioned that solidarity should be directed against the Faculty of Mass Communications Arbitrary Division of male and female students, which lacks any basis in science, law or mortality. She added that the main problem wasn't that she was fired from her position as chair of a journalism department, but rather that many women in academic and administrative roles are denied the ability to make decisions in environments where men predominate. Several of Al-Aghbari's students, acquaintances, and Yemeni human rights activists immediately flocked to Facebook to express their support after they knew of her dismissal, though many of them refrained from mentioning the Houthis.
Many people staged a protest in front of the board's building to condemn the killing of the head of the World Food Program in Taiz. Instead, the protesters condemned the killing, calling on the authorities to complete the process of the case, reveal it to the public, and impose the harshest penalties against the perpetrators and those involved in the operation that targeted the head of the World Food Program in the governorate. Clashes renewed between the government forces and the Houthi militia in Taiz. The media center of the Taiz Axis stated that the government forces fought fierce battles with the Houthi militia. This comes in conjunction with the air defense's interception of Houthi drones that tried to target government forces positions and residential villages west of Taiz. After the Saudi announcement of the new support of $1.2 billion, Al-Alimi instructed state officials to continue their work from Aden. This report has more details.
The head of the Yemeni Presidential Leadership Council directed all state officials to return to the interim capital Aden no later than the 6th of August to resume their work from there and continue in the headquarters in the city. This followed the announcement of the new Saudi support for Yemen in the amount of $1.2 billion. The directives of the Yemeni presidency for the return of senior state officials to Aden coincide with optimism on the Yemeni street that the new Saudi support will enable the government to fulfill its urgent obligations in terms of salaries and necessary services and bridge the deficit in the public budget. The Yemenis also hope that the new Saudi support will be reflected in the economic conditions, especially in maintaining the stability of the currency rate and providing hard currency for the import of necessary goods. The presidential announcement stressed the cancellation of any authorizations for spending from the state budget or the budgets of the authorities and limiting spending to those legally authorized, namely the Minister of his deputy, as well as representatives of the Ministry of Finance in the authorities. The announcement indicated that, in the event of a justified exception, one of the leadership of the entity other than consultants may be delegated for a temporary period, not exceeding 2 weeks, for a specific ceiling and for necessary purposes such as salaries and with the approval of the Prime Minister. On Tuesday, Saudi Arabia announced new economic support for Yemen amounting to $1.2 billion, which would supplement the budget deficit of the Yemeni government, contribute to the disbursement of salaries, ensure food security, and stabilize the deteriorating Yemeni currency. The Saudi ambassador to Yemen considered this support a positive sign for all Yemenis of the continued Saudi support for the Yemeni economy, pointing out that there are many opportunities now to achieve peace in Yemen.
Coming next in the news. Years of conflict aggravate suffering of displaced families in Taiz.
اسمي سنة وأنا لسه من سنة. لما بدأت الحرب كان عمري 2 سنين. كنت أخاف أوقات بس الرسم يسعدني. حلمي أن أكون رسامة عالمية. أمنيتي صعود سلم النجاح وأحقق كل أحلامي. أنا سالم من حضرموت وأنا أحب التصوير. لما بدأت الحرب كان عمري 6 سنوات. أحب تصوير كل جميل في بلدي.
Welcome back. The war and the siege in Taiz continue as a natural extension of the suffering of the majority of the population who were unable to provide the minimum requirements for life. This report has more details.
The majority of people in Taiz are unable to provide the minimum requirements for life due to the war and the siege that become a natural extension of the suffering. The stories of the displaced families are a reflection of the reality of several families. After a difficult journey of eviction, Yusri Muhammad found this house, which is under construction and not well equipped, as a shelter for his family rather than staying in the streets. He uses this wooden board as a door for the house and hang the pieces of cloth for the interior doors and windows. However, he was incapable to make a toilet or provide a kitchen requirement or electricity. He kept searching for a better chance rather than cursing the war and the siege.
I was living in the air defense zone and the owner of the house came and kicked us out. Hadn't been for Fatima, the wife of Adnan Habashi, may God reward her deeds, my children and I would have stayed in the street. She made me live here. However, the house has no windows, doors, bathrooms or a kitchen.
The neighboring family was not in a better condition than Yusri, as the two families sharing being displaced, homeless, and both living in a state of poverty with the difference in the number of family members. This family has 10 children who live in misery and no one pays attention to them.
We are 3 displaced families in this shelter. We thank the owner of the house, but it has no windows or doors or food supplies. We appeal to the organizations to give us mattresses and food or financial aid in order to help us, because we cannot live in this situation in light of the war.
Those families fled the hell of war from their homes in Wadi Ghurab for the sake of their children, but they have no clue that a Yemeni child dies every 10 minutes, victimized of hunger and malnutrition. So who will save their innocent childhood?
بن ثياب يشطط يعني حوس وهذا نروح بثياب ونصلحها معاوي لنا وكراتين من الشوارع. والله ان احنا نكره المطر، يخسع لنا البطانيات، يخسع الفراش، يخسع الجماش، نسمر براده، خاسعين احنا وجهالنا.
فالمأوى الانتقالي هذا الكنتيرة جعلتهم يعيشوا في استقرار للمستفيدين من ناحية، سواء من ناحية الأمطار أو من ناحية العواصف والرياح والرملية، بما أنه عندنا هنا في مارب الرياح بتكون شديدة.
The restoration and maintenance work of the main line linking the districts of Al Khawkha and Hais has been completed. With the support of Brigadier General Tariq Muhammad Abdullah Saleh, Vice Chairman of the Presidential Leadership Council, the restoration work was carried out along the line 35 kilometers under the supervision and follow-up of the Director General of the Governorate Police, Brigadier General. He noted that the line was run down due to the bombing it was subjected to by the Houthi militia.
أنا صادق سعيد عبد علي، أستاذ الرسول 5 مع الأب والأم من أهالي منطقة البنيد شمال الغربية. كنا نشتغل شهر ورقد شهرين. كانت الطريق سابقا وعورة وصعوبة والطلوع متعب جدا.
لما كان معنا مريض كنا نتكلف الجهد والمال وما تجد سيارة وصعوبة جدا السيارة العادية تطلع هنا كانت.
صبت الطريق واكتفاء بالشراكة مع ائتلاف الإغاثة.
النشاط النقد مقابل العمل مشروع جيد يقدم خدمات إغاثية برضو لشريحة واسعة من المعدمين.
استفدنا من مقابل العمل أول ما صلحوا لنا طريقنا، ثانيا استفدنا يعني عندي مساعدة للبيوت حقنا، يعني حصلنا مساعدة من 92,000. 3 مرات. بالفلوس هذه اشترينا الاحتياجات الأساسية تغذية اللي نحتاجها بالبيت. المشروع حلو جدا وإن شاء الله نستمر ونغلق الباقي.
شوف هذا المشروع هذا يعني يخفف المعاناة ويوفر الجهد والمال والعراق، مش للمنطقة هذه بس، هذه المنطقة ترتبط بالعشرات من القرى.
The Humanitarian Action Cell of the National Resistance provided a new batch of food aid to male and female teachers in Taiz. The aid included official teachers and volunteers in the school, which are next to Hais district south of Hodeidah. The aid comes within the framework of a new campaign to support teachers on the West Coast, an implementation of the directives of Brigadier General Tariq Muhammad Abdullah Saleh. People in Al Bayda and all Yemen's free citizens have begun a massive electronic campaign to raise awareness of the crimes committed by the Houthi militia against 4 sheikhs of Al Omar tribe. This report has more details.
7 years have passed since the Houthi militia's grievous infraction against the tribe of Al Omar in the Naim district. Thousands of crimes have followed suit in Al Bayda governorate. On the 7th anniversary of the Houthi militia's brutality against Al Bayda's sheikhs, a large electronic campaign was started to remind locals and sheikhs of the cruel incident.
وبالتعريج عن حادثة القدر الجبانة التي حدثت لمشايخ البيضاء.
In light of the anniversary of the Sheikh's massacre, activists in the governorate have launched an electronic campaign to identify Houthi infractions to global institutions. Al Bayda massacre wasn't the first or last Houthi violation, but it was the most brutal and violent. The Houthis' list of violations in the governorate is long, spanning over 10,000 war crimes.
Houthi forces marching southward overran Bayda, a thinly populated region in central Yemen, after gaining control of Yemen's capital, Sana'a, in 2015. Currently, the Houthis are in charge of the province's other 80%, as well as the regional capital, Bayda.
رموهم في شعب من الشعاب وفي حدود قبيلة من القبائل على أساس.
We will not forget the violations committed against our people, and we will seek legal justice for our victims.
With 8 provinces bordering it, 4 in the north and 4 in the south, Bayda is well situated in the center of Yemen. By forcibly ejecting the Houthis from Bayda, the war may be redirected in favor of the Yemeni government and its tribes, thereby bringing Yemen closer to peace.
Here's a reminder of the main headlines. UK intends to address United Nations Security Council on Iranian intervention in Yemen and Houthi violations. Houthis fire an academic from Sana'a University for opposing separation of male and female students. Head of Presidential Council directs government to resume work from Aden. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.